Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everyone? It's Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan for our middle of the week film review podcast. The Eagles beating the Giants 34-10, and now they have the Washington football team to look forward to as they look to make the playoffs. They are closing in. They are knocking on playoffs door, and it could happen on Sunday in Landover, Maryland against Washington. We'll take a quick look at that. But obviously, we'll get into the tape review of what happened in the Giants game. We'll talk some transactions. We'll talk about COVID, which is still rearing its ugly head on the team and the league. And, of course, we will break down the tape from our sources. Adam, your power rankings are up on InsideTheBirds.com. And I felt like obviously the Packers are number one. I feel like Tennessee is a difficult team to try and figure out. I mean, they went through a little bit of a lull after losing Henry, and now they're kind of back. I mean, They've won. They're 10-5, so you got to give them a lot of credit, as you did, making them the seventh best team for kind of surviving the Derrick Henry-less games. But you had like kind of a nugget that you expect him back.
Well, what I had heard is he might start working next week, not play in Week 18 against Houston, but just start working back, coming back from the Jones fracture.
Right.
And then if he's able to work, they could assess when he might be ready to play. I don't want to say a miracle, it would take a lot for him to be able to play next week. In Week 18. But they need him back, there's no doubt. They're going with a 3 running back committee with the Titans. And their defense is playing really, really well now. Jimmy Garoppolo kind of gave the game away for the Niners, but they took advantage of it, which you have to do. Getting A.J. Brown back, I was talking about this before in our show, where he energized not just the offense, he energized the defense. Titans source said that they were unbelievably excited. He just put on an unbelievable performance. He was uncoverable. And it lifted up the whole team, and their offense had been moribund. It had been quiet. So they might get Henry back in the next 2 or 3 weeks, but certainly they need him because he is their bread and butter. They still try to run the ball, but there's no one like him in the National Football League, and it's so true now as we move this on here. Depth, as the Eagles we talk about running back. Depth is so important. Sometimes you wonder, why do they have all these players? Well, now you know why, because of the COVID issue and injuries.
Right. Someone asked me, by the way, recently, who do I think the Eagles would have the best shot at upsetting in the wild card round? And I guess the 3 teams we discussed that they could potentially play, assuming the Packers get the number 1 seed, would be Dallas, the Rams, or the Cardinals. And I felt that the Cardinals, because they're kind of fading down the stretch, they lost DeAndre Hopkins for the year. Their defense was really good earlier in the year. It hasn't stayed at the same level. I just feel like that's the type of team that maybe the Eagles could upset and get their running game going against. I would have a hard time seeing the Eagles match up well against the Rams. I just think the Rams have too much firepower, and they run the ball really well. They play great. I mean, they have good defensive players. I think that would be a difficult task for them. And then the Cowboys I'd put in the middle. I think the Cowboys have a lot of weapons and would be a tough matchup too, but we haven't seen round 2 yet of that series.
Yeah, you and I won't agree on the Rams. I've probably seen them more than most people. I watch them almost every week. They're a good team. There's no doubt. They're the Raiders. I don't know when the Raiders practice with them, they just turned out to be right. They said they're very top heavy. They've got a great starting unit, one of the best 22s that you could put out there. But now they have injury issues. Darrell Henderson's going to be out for a while with a grade 2 MCL sprain. Sony Michel is a grinded out, tough inside runner. You don't worry about him. The Eagles' run defense has really improved. We could talk all we want about who they face, and it's true. But the run defense has come a long way. We're going to talk about that in this show today on Wednesday morning. Matthew Stafford's playing out of his mind. Their offensive line's good when they're not on COVID. They've had a couple guys on the COVID list. Whitworth is on it currently.
Right.
They're good. Eagles could beat. I agree with your assessment on the Cardinals. I'd rather, if I had to rank them, the Cardinals is definitely a team I want to play. Hopkins may be back in the playoffs if they have a deep run. But you're right. He's out now and could be out a couple weeks at least in the playoffs. I would rank them the teams I'd want to play if I were an Eagles fan. Cardinals 1, Rams 2. Don't want to face the Packers in any way, shape, or form.
We eliminated the Packers from that conversation.
Yeah, because they most likely will have the bye. But listen, the other thing is we don't know when Sanders is going to be back, and we'll talk about the running game on the show today. But when you can run the ball in cold weather, it certainly helps you. It helps your quarterback out, who's a part of the running game, but it just helps you all the way around because you're not putting everything on your quarterback. And that when you have a younger quarterback, every team that has a rookie or a first-round pick that's not playing well or a second-year player that's developing, you don't want to go away from what you do. And the Eagles do one thing. The reason why they're 8-7 is they do one thing incredibly well, probably better than any other football team. Now, if the Titans get Derrick Henry back at some point, they'll probably run it well. But nobody runs the ball better than the Eagles, though I am concerned with the two guys who are hurt.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Look, my Rams thing is this. It's not that I think the Rams are so dominant. I think they're a bad matchup for the Eagles because I have seen this Eagles team play against other teams with decent quarterbacks and good wide receivers and not even belong on the same field. And it's been a long time since they've been. I would put the Rams as tougher than Dallas, only because if they play Dallas, it's a third division game. You've seen them a lot. You know how division games tend to be very, very they tend to be wacky and weird, and anything can happen. So that's why I think the Rams would still be a tougher matchup in Los Angeles, of course, although I'm sure Eagles fans would travel pretty well for that. Yep. But I just don't have faith that they'd be able to stop Kupp and Beckham on the outsides. I just think that they would get picked apart all defensively. But, that's where reasonable people can disagree.
Right. That's a co-sell line. I want to say one thing about that Rams game. You and I were talking about this on the Fanatic on Monday night. You were hosting on the Fanatic for the 2017 game where they clinched the division with Wentz towards ACL. I was at that game. And I remember you and I were talking. You said, hey, what's the fandom like pregame? And it was really remarkable. And I knew this going on because you could see in social media all these fans were chiming in. This before you and I did our Inside the Birds podcast. We would start it, the show, the spring of 18. But it was unbelievable. There's so many Los Angeles transplants in the entertainment business, or Philadelphians who work in the entertainment business. Easily 20,000 people in the LA Mausoleum were Eagle fans there. And the funny thing was, of course, the big one was the Charger game. Was it in 18 when Blunt went off? Was that the Charger game at the Home Depot Center, whatever they called it then?
No, 17. That was the Super Bowl year.
Okay.
It came right after the Giants win where Elliott kicked the 63-yarder. They went to 2-1, and then they went out to LA and went to 3-1 with that. That was a very, very, very impressive win.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody else the other day about just Carson Wentz in general, and obviously he's put his team in a tough position. He's going to be out because he's unvaccinated. He's on COVID list. I don't know. We were just going through some of those plays that Carson Wentz made in 2017 that were otherworldly. And even though he's playing much better now than last year, and he's clearly not a broken quarterback, he's a pretty good quarterback who can still make some really good plays. That touchdown he had to Patton last week against who they played? The Cardinals? What's that?
Cardinals, that was unbelievable. Yeah.
That was like a glimpse of the old Carson, but he just if you go back and watch some of the clips of his touchdowns in 2017, you wonder what happened to that guy. He's not there all the time anymore. He's only there once in a while. He's still much better than last year, but I don't know if we'll ever see that again from Carson. That was talk about lightning in a bottle, I guess. Maybe it's too many hits and injuries.
Well, here's what happened. He had that. I only know what an IT band is because I'm going through something right now physically. My IT band. That's between your it's between your hips and your lower leg, and there's just fibers and so forth. And I know he ripped his IT band, was part of the ACL reconstruction. That's how devastating that injury was. Who knew then it was, But he has not been the same as a runner. He looks like he's got a hitch in the way that he runs.
Yeah.
I don't know that he'll ever be the same. That's part of the athleticism part where he was, as you were talking about, like he was at a different level. We saw Randall here, Vic, Jaws. We can go through all the quarterback play. McNabb obviously was terrific for many years. But I would argue that was the best season that we'd ever seen from Eagle quarterback. He was just so special, and he's not been the same. But as you said, and you're right, he's like 70% of that. I don't know if he'll ever get any better than that because he's once you have surgery, your body's not the same.
Yeah,
but it was it's as we move this forward here, quarterback play is so essential. You can't. When Trent Dilfer won the Super Bowl in 2000, that magical year for the Ravens, you can't hide the quarterback anymore. The rules are different now. The offenses have different advantages. And if you have a guy who's mobile, whether it's Wentz, it's Hurts, whoever it is, if they can make plays on their feet, it just gives you something different, man. It gives you the defense like they don't know what to do sometimes.
Right, the old second reaction plays, as they're called, that are like backbreakers against a good defense.
Right.
All right, so again, your power rankings are up on InsideTheBirds.com. Encourage everybody to check them out. Also, check out our last ITB TV with Seth Joyner. It's still raising up on the views. People are really enjoying that one. Seth was very fair and very honest.
Awesome.
Not as I know some people think he's like angry Seth all the time, but he was not like that.
No, he's a funny guy, by the way. I've got to know him from playing golf with him in charity events, and we play one in. We need to get you out to that one in Hershey. He's and he loves one time very quick. This will take 30 seconds. So I'm at an event. I think it was the Otho Davis Foundation dinner a couple years ago before COVID, and him, B West, if B West listen, he'll remember this. It was B West, Seth, Ike, our friend Ike Reese, and oh God, I should know this because it was an all-time Eagle, and it was so great to see this guy. Oh, God damn it, I'm gonna forget it now. But Clyde Simmons. Clyde. It was Clyde. It was good to see Clyde Simmons, and it was 1 a.m, and he was giving a demonstration of technique and pass rush and how to tackle, and it was great. He's using the other guys, his former teammates and former Eagles, as guys to run the plays for him. You had to be there. I'm laughing and like mesmerized by the whole thing. Like, this is like the coolest thing. I wish people could see this. I wish we could have I should have filmed it. Idiot I am. I should have filmed it, put it on Twitter with his permission.
That would have been good.
It was so great. We were all laughing because it's typical Seth. He's like a football guy, It was
Absolutely
great. He would remember that.
All right. Also, we will be doing our pregame show, our all-important, potentially playoff spot clinching pregame show on Sunday, starting at 10 a.m. till noon on our YouTube and Facebook and other social media pages. We've been getting great crowds and great interaction, so we really appreciate everybody who's been tuning in. Myself, yourself, Adam, Greg Cosell, and Jason Avant. It's been a great show. I'm sad a little bit that we're starting to come to the end of it. I mean, who knows how many more we'll do after these next two.
That's a good point.
It's been a great year and really enjoyed it. And I just wanted to thank everybody who's tuned in. Also, a thanks to the people who have left us some 5-star reviews on Apple. We've seemed to be getting more and more per week. And please continue to do so. There was a couple of questions. In fact, if we don't get to it this episode, we'll maybe do
Friday.
An Ask ITB. We'll get to it Friday, right? So there were some questions, and we'll get to that. So if you continue to do that, leave a question along with a 5-star review. We will answer your question, and we appreciate all the great interactions and feedback. Even the ones that aren't great, we appreciate if you leave any kind of review. We just like the feedback. We will get into the transactions first. There have been some important ones, but as you know, as I've been saying, you've got to get yourself onto Deal Dash, the online shopping platform that is actually fun. It's the longest running penny auction and website and app around. What does that mean? It means you have the chance to get amazing anything you want, right? Electronics, housewares, TVs, cars. I mean, you think about it, whatever it is, it's on Deal Dash. And if you're willing to bid some pennies and wait it out, and if you love that feeling of winning, then this app is definitely for you. We've seen a car sell for $900, brand new TV for less than $2. So don't be a loser. Stop paying full retail price for things you want and just get on Deal Dash. Go to DealDash.com or download the app. And when you register, if you enter the promo code ITB, that's the key here. Get that promo code ITB and you get a special offer for some bonus free bids. That means you might win something without ever even paying the money for pennies yet, just because you used the promo code ITB. So take advantage of that account, that promo code if you can. It'll be your best friend. Let's get into some of the transactions that we've seen. We have to say goodbye once again to Luke Juriga from the practice squad. And I think the Eagles did a really smart thing, Adam. They signed the kicker, Matt McCrane. Obviously, with COVID rearing its ugly head, you might lose your kicker the day before a game. And instead of having to maybe go for 2 every time or go for it on all 4 downs, you have an extra body there on the practice squad. I think that's really smart.
Oh, they had it. Yeah, in fact, I don't know how I missed this. I thought we could. I don't know. I get the transactions from the league before they're announced, and for some reason I missed it. I was like, and then Michael Clay talked about the special teams coach on Tuesday in his press gathering, so that he explained it just like you did. They got to be careful. You can't not have a kicker. You don't want to have to go for 2. That'd be interesting. That would be interesting to see what their 2-point conversions would have to look like. But then on Monday, this is where the bad news came in. They lost 2 DNs to COVID on the COVID list. Derek Barnett, starter. We'll have to talk about that. Tron Jackson has been playing a lot as Flash, and he's this rookie class. I know we had a couple questions on it, and we'll talk more about it on Friday. We'll have more time to talk about it. but they're getting a lot of play out of Jackson. He's an interesting player where they stand him up where he plays with his hand down.
Right.
So, man, they're down, man. They're down on numbers at the end. This is going to be a problem.
Yeah, as I said on the last pod that dropped Monday morning, although I don't know, maybe we didn't talk about that. Maybe I said it on the show, our show on the Fanatic, 6 to 8 at night. I don't necessarily worry as much right now about the guys who go on COVID reserve Monday and Tuesday because, as we saw Nick Sirianni, he went on a Wednesday last week and made it back for the game. But although I don't know their vaccination statuses and it's not listed, so if they're not vaccinated, obviously you worry about it. But
they're out.
I think we've been told the Eagles were at like 95%.
They're one of the highest. Yes, yeah. I'd be shocked if we'll see. If all of them aren't available, you make a very good point and then there's a push because Omicron, as I did research on it, because there was a day where I thought I had it. Turned out whatever was in me, I got out of my system by taking extra Tylenol. I didn't feel right. I was playing tennis and I came home and for 4 hours, I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then went away, whatever it was.
Good.
But Omicron based on all the research I've done, obviously everyone's different, but the early word we've gotten, if you do research on, is it's shorter. It's more like a cold. Yeah, you don't feel right. It's a virus, but it goes away in 3 to 4 days.
Right.
And as you were saying with Sirianni, maybe he had it on that Monday or Sunday. He didn't know it because that's the part about this with viruses. Sometimes you don't know that you have it.
Correct.
In fact, if I never have had the flu vaccine, there have been times in my life where I felt like crap. I probably had the flu, so who knows? You do what you do to get back. But when it comes to these guys, listen now, this is how bad it is right now. As we speak right now, Wednesday morning, unless they come off very quickly, Barnett, Jackson, and Kerrigan are currently on the list.
Right.
So the guys who are on the 53 at DN who they have available are Josh Sweat, who played very well this past. He's actually playing fairly well. We're just not getting the big sack numbers. Josh Sweat. Avery could play with his hand down. You could stand him up. Obviously, he was a DM by trade. Patrick Johnson could be stood up, or he could play with his hand down, but he doesn't play very much. Milt Williams could play inside. He plays almost all inside. Boy, this draft class looks really good. He's playing well, but he's not. I just don't think at his level he would survive as a DN. They got problems, man. This is not good.
Right. We talked about maybe you'll see Jannard Avery in a edge rushing role if need be. Because he has played that role in the past. He's really just been a run defender, a Sam linebacker. When another team comes out in a base or a 2 tight end or 3 tight end offense, which is not often, so you don't see him that much, but you can adjust if need be, and I'm sure they will. So like I said, we'll get more concerned if by the time we do our next pod and it drops Friday, if these guys aren't back yet, you'll say, okay, well maybe they're still feeling symptoms or something's going on there. We should also mention that the practice squad tight end Noah Tokiai is also on the practice squad COVID-19 list. And one thing that I think that we should keep in the back of our minds, and I don't know the policy, maybe you do, coaches. If coaches are on the COVID, is there a list for? I know for head coaches there are.
Yeah,
but I don't know about position coaches.
In terms of.
If they test positive for COVID, the team doesn't necessarily have to announce it right away or at 4:00 like it does with all the other.
No, correct.
List they go on, so the team doesn't have to alert the NFL. But that doesn't mean
they have to alert the NFL.
Yes, right. They have to alert the NFL, but the NFL does not. Does it always?
They don't announce it.
No, they don't announce it. Right.
You're right.
So I got you. See the day of the game. Oh, the Eagles are going to be without 6, 7, 8, position coaches because the Eagles then just decided to tell everybody. They're not going to tell everybody for competitive advantage reasons.
I don't know that.
They did it last year. They did it last year. Don't you remember that game where we reported that Hightower and another wide receiver were going on the COVID list, which they did. But later we found out during that game that Washburn, the Jeremiah Washburn, and 2 or 3 other assistants were not available in that game because of COVID. And they didn't tell you that until like literally the day of. So
and you're right. like there's no list. You just the league has to be informed of who's on COVID, who has it, who's tested positive, whether you're a player or a coach. But yeah, and we've seen a lot of teams have announced it in the morning of. Yeah, I don't know. That's a, you know what, I'm going to check into that. It's interesting.
It was the Giants game last year, by the way, on November 20th. As I quickly look it up.
And look, now it's kind of like you expect assistant coaches, especially when there's a position group, you expect coaches and that could happen to the position coach that could be out that week. Right. But every team has a plan, and we used to make fun of the Eagles, and I know someone from the Eagles got on me about it, how the assistant coaches have assistants, but they need them now. They need each position coach needs an assistant because this could happen.
Right.
When have an assistant.
All right, let's get into some injuries, non-COVID related injuries. So the latest on Miles Sanders. If those who did not hear our show on the Fanatic Monday night, we had some updates from an injury perspective. Nick Sirianni did confirm that Miles Sanders had a broken hand. We were able to report, though, what we know is he had a procedure on Monday to repair the break. My understanding is it did involve either a screw or a pin. You know, when you break and they got to kind of put that in to put it together. So obviously when you have that kind of a procedure, you're going to be out a while. It's my understanding that kind of procedure has you out for 2 to 3 weeks. So even though they're not putting him on IR, it doesn't mean that they expect him back soon. It's just that if you go on IR twice in a year, you're out totally for the rest of the year, like Jack Driscoll is. Yep. So there's a chance he could play again if the Eagles make a playoff run. The question is, would he be able to play in the wild card game? And I understand that that's kind of iffy because that's still in that 2 to 3
week really early
range. Yeah, I imagine that unless he makes a great recovery, that he's probably out for a first round wild card game. So the Eagles will probably have to win a playoff game for him to make it back.
Okay, so you know that you've heard he's had a procedure. Okay, and also he had that quadriceps injury, but apparently it was very minor. By the way, we'll get into it. I'll just give you a hint before we get there. Apparently he looked really good. Like he apparently had two. One of my guys told me he looks super explosive. It's too bad. And then Jordan Howard, he's played for this knee sprain. He had a bad drop in the first half. I'm at the point now. I understand you want the ball to be on the right shoulder. If the ball's in your hands, catch the damn ball. Oh God, that's your job. You know, I'm sick of making excuses for guys who drop no matter what team it is. When the ball's in your, it's like Goddard. Okay, the ball was tipped. 2 people told me they're certain the ball was hit a finger of the lineman, and I get it. It came out funny, but catch the ball's in your hands. Catch it.
I'm with you, man. Catch the ball. It's in your hands. You got to catch it. Yeah. So Howard is gonna. I know they said they're hopeful he's gonna play Sunday.
Oh yeah.
But it's my understanding that when you have a shoulder sprain for a running back like him, and
he has a shoulder sprain, huh?
Okay. Yeah, it's a shoulder sprain. Yeah.
Well, they said a stinger, right?
Well, a stinger is the neck shoulder area. Yeah, it's my understanding it's a slight sprain. So which is probably what a stinger is in general. But either way. It's my understanding that it doesn't make him definite to go, that there's a pain tolerance that you've got to have to be able to get through it, because as we saw with him the first time around a couple of years ago, these things can linger.
His was bad. 2 months. And
that one was a bad one. I don't get the sense that this is that bad. It was, like I said, it was a slight sprain as I kind of.
Well, maybe there's 2 things in there. Yeah, maybe because they reported it's a stinger, because the stinger is when you have a nerve issue. It needs to fire back up. Now you're saying if he's got a slight AC joint sprain, for instance.
Yeah, it's an AC. That's what I heard it as, an AC.
Okay.
Joint sprain.
Yeah, you either strap it up. You wear a harness. It's rare for a player to miss time unless it's a complete tear. If it's a slight tear, as you say, you should be able to play through it, but we don't have enough information yet. But that's interesting information. It's
I think what they have to determine, Adam, is the pain. Like, he can play through the pain, but if you get hit constantly in that area, does it make your weakness of tucking the ball? Like, can you hold on to the ball the way you normally would?
Right.
He's a contact runner. We know that. So he's gonna get hit a lot when he gets the ball. Is that going to compound the issue and make it weaker to either carry the ball or do whatever? Maybe he puts the ball in the other armpit. Who knows? But I think we'll have to see as the week goes on how he responds to the treatment. So I know they're hopeful. It doesn't sound like he's definite. We'll see what he's listed as when the final injury report comes in. It would surprise me if he at least wasn't listed as questionable. but we'll see.
Yeah, because remember, there's no problem anymore. I would agree based on the information you're putting out there that he would be. And then see now the only running back currently that they have that's actually signed to the practice squad is Jason Huntley, who's really not played.
Right.
So it's to the point with Huntley, he's just a changeup. I don't know, man. I don't know.
To be activated, don't you think? I mean,
he has. I mean, I guess. Yeah, and he's. I remember talking to Lions. They just felt he was too far away from being able to contribute. They didn't really want him.
Right.
They would have kept him on his practice squad. They would have put him on the practice squad, but they just felt he was so far away based on their training camp experience with him that they didn't think he could help them. Then, obviously, had he been able to be developed, maybe he would have been able to contribute. But he was claimed off waivers in September of 2020. He spent the practice squad for most of the season this year. And then, he was on the COVID list briefly on the practice squad COVID list. He was put back on the practice squad. So we'll see. He's a little guy. He's 5'8" and change. Explosive. His analytic numbers. His he's really explosive. But that's not what they need right now. They need Jordan Howard to play. They need a back with size. That he is really giving them that.
Yeah. Yes, they do. Now, so I have to imagine if he's active, it's Howard. But it'll be to me, I would imagine it's going to be a Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell type game. We'll see if Howard can go, and then Huntley, I would imagine, would only get some work if it's a blowout or if it's if somebody else goes down and they need him to get in there. I think he's kind of insurance policy if he gets elevated from the practice squad.
Yeah, and you were hitting to it. They definitely are a two running back system. They almost always are two backs, three when maybe one guy has an injury he's coming off of or struggling. But that's what surprised me because again we didn't have a frame of reference with his coaching staff. That's why Boston Scott never got a touch from scrimmage until Sanders got his first injury.
Right.
And as I was saying on the Monday show, they could look. They don't have to extend him after the season because he's signed through 22. But typically, the Eagles look to extend players they like early, which with the rules you could extend after year 3. But I don't know why they would. I wouldn't because he's just hurt too much. Really gifted player, Sanders, but guys trouble staying on the field.
No doubt about it. And you do wonder if in the absence of Miles, their super explosive element. If this is a week that they feel more comfortable working the read option and design quarterback runs with Jalen Hurts, which are basically vanished from the offense, even though Hurts has been back for a couple of weeks now from the ankle injury. Again, he's scrambling at times, so you can't see with the naked eye that he's limited by that ankle. He looks normal to me when he throws, but I mean, so I don't know if maybe they're just playing it safe.
I think they
until
are.
he gets more time.
Yeah.
But I mean, you got to you're trying to make the playoffs here and you're trying to win football.
Sure.
Games. So
good point.
If you can run the quarterback designed reads, the design runs.
Oh, power. I love the quarterback power, man. Quarterback power. It seems like a lot of the guys who run, Buffalo runs with Brian Dable, with Josh Allen. It's crazy. It's just like, he looks like I know he's so athletic. He's just a power. It's funny. I would say Josh Allen's a little faster than Hurts, but they got, Hurts is solidly built at 6'1", 220. And obviously Allen's way bigger, and they both can run, man. It's but obviously Allen's way taller, and that by the way, as we get started here, that's one of the things we'll get into is where I think Hurts sometimes doesn't see. It's not that he's locked into the one pass target, which we've pointed out, and Greg Cosell pointed out for us, and some of the people we've talked to pointed out. He's not the tallest guy in the world. Sometimes I'm not sure if he sees so well over the line.
I agree with you on that. We'll wrap it up here. Nate Herbig, guard center. It sounds like everything's fine. They said he could have gone back in, even though he sprained his knee. So it sounds like a minor knee sprain. So he should be back in there. And same thing with Steven Nelson with the hand injury. He went back into the game. So all that is good too. All right, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code ITB. Bet just $5 on any NFL team and win $200 in free bets if that team is victorious. That's promo code ITB. This week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, Pennsylvania only, new customers only, restrictions apply, in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And of course, if you're looking to get an advantage over your sportsbook, Download BetQL. It's the only app you'll need to make smart bets. They got a best bet computer model. It scans over 350,000 unique bets per year that gives you a best bet recommendation for every game across all major sports and the reason why you should place the bet. The model covers spreads, over-unders, player prop bets, but you can just ditch the model if you'd rather do the research yourself and use BetQL's other tools for your research needs, from sharp data to line movement, team summaries, lineup and injury breaking news, even the leaderboards to track your success. So head to the App Store or Google Play Store now to download BetQL. You can also head to try.betql.co/ITB to get started now. Just enter the discount code ITB at payment checkout for 25% off their subscription offerings. And then check out their sportsbook offers page if you live in one of the eligible states to claim free offers upon signing up at one of the many sportsbooks listed. Don't miss out on the chance to beat your sportsbook this football season using BetQL. All right, we will start with the Eagles offense against the Giants defense. I mentioned in the podcast on Monday, I thought the Giants defense had a nice game plan going in. It was a 3-3 game at the half. I believe they just wore down in the second half by being on the field so much because the Giants offense was just garbage, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't have a better word, a nicer word. It was a garbage offensive display by the New York Giants. But we'll get into the Eagles offense first. And Jalen Hurts. What kind of feedback have you gotten on Jalen Hurts? Obviously, his first half was different than the second half.
Lack of energy is kind of what we saw off television. A couple people told me lack of energy. There was no connection. Mm-hmm. The first two drives, no rhythm. Look at my notes here. No rhythm to what they were doing with the first drive. Hurts' timing was off. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, they also had some bad drops. They had at least 4 in the first half.
Yep.
You can't. And again, I can't get on this enough. It's ridiculous. These are professional football players. Mm-hmm. You got to catch the football when it's in your hands. I don't care if it's on the right or wrong shoulder. Catch the ball.
Right.
So that the Howard drop, the Goddard drop, the Sanders drop. There's one other one which I can't remember, but I want to give Hurts credit. This we forgot to mention this on the Monday show.
Okay.
But one of the guys I spoke to on Tuesday pointed this out to me, and now I remember it. I remembered it when he brought it up, and I remember thinking he's not done a good job of this. He's actually been really poor at this area, but he was great in it on this throw. When we've watched Hurts particularly this season, he generally does not do a very good job of setting his feet, and when he's got to drive the ball downfield, he doesn't always square his shoulders. We talked about this on the pregame show, the four of us, me, you, and Vaughn and Cosell. Too often the ball lacks energy, it dies because he doesn't. We could say all we want about his arm isn't strong enough, but I don't necessarily agree with that. The problem is his mechanics are not usually good. Well, on this throw, the crosser it wasn't a crosser. What happened is he might have been on the left side and threw it all the way across field into the middle to Devontae Smith. This was the path was clear, but he doesn't usually set his feet. He set his feet, he set his shoulders, and he drove it. This is a tough throw. And there are some crosswinds for those of you who've been to the Linc. There are a lot of crosswinds. Sometimes the weather app may say, oh, it's only 8 to 10 miles an hour, but you get these damn crosswinds sometimes. I know quarterbacks have told me over the years, you don't know what's coming, and sometimes it'll cause the ball to flutter. This one, if you slow the tape down, apparently had a little bit of a tail on it, but he drove it, and it was a really good throw to Smith. It's an innocuous throw. You may have thought, watch it on TV, it's not a big deal, but it is when you're live, when you're trying to drive it. It's not an easy throw, and he definitely set his feet, so I made sure to mention that. And then second quarter is a little bit more comfortable, and they work more off the run game because they were a little bit more committed to the run later in the first quarter and the second quarter. Mm-hmm. They came out throwing. Look, that's that's okay. I know a lot of people were not happy. The run game people wanted them to come out. I get it because it's been incredible. They still ran the ball well. They ran it for 60. The running back, I think they had 130 total, 59. I always look at the running backs first. 59 from the running backs in the first half. I think it was like almost 70. Yeah, it was 60, almost 70 in the second half for the running backs. They ran the ball fairly well. Again, had Sanders not gotten hurt, I would have bet $1,000 they would run for over 200. Apparently, the holes were there, as you were saying it earlier, because the Giants' offense was on the field so much. They were getting grinded. It's just that without Howard to grind it in the second half and Sanders' explosiveness, he looked great. He had one run, a guy told me. He just burrowed his way. It might have been the 16-yard run. He just lowered his shoulders. This is something he was not doing earlier in his career. It's just a shame that they're not going to have him probably for at least this game, the final game against Dallas.
Right.
So that would be pretty much it. That a little pre-snap motion to get the pre-snap indicator. Throughout the game, they didn't do a lot, but they did a little bit of it. That certainly helped. And then Hurts, they're not using as a runner. I think both were non-designed plays. In fact, the last 2 games, they're not designed it because they know he's got this ankle issue, and he's had 8 runs. I would say at least 8 of them were not designed. They were just on his own.
Interesting. Okay. Before we go any further, I think people can appreciate the breaking news element of our job, and rather than try to redo an entire podcast when news comes out, I think we're just going to talk about the news now because we've already addressed some of this. So we'll just put it in now instead of doing a whole editing job. This is real time. People understand that what we do is, obviously things can change and things are fluid. So we'll quickly go through some of the breaking news that has happened as we are doing this podcast. The Eagles have signed Kerryon Johnson and Luke Juriga, who they had just released, to the practice squad. So they have more insurance at the running back position. I don't know that Kerryon's going to get called up. I feel like that's even more insurance. I would think that Huntley is still someone who's been with the team all year that would get the nod first. Sure. Now, interestingly, they released the kicker, McCrane, from the practice squad. So we just gave them all that credit for a smart move of having a backup kicker. Now they don't have one. And John Hightower.
But they can do that on Saturday. Then they can do that on Saturday.
What's that? They can.
Or Friday. They can bring McCrane back later in the week.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And maybe they will. And, of course, John Hightower is the latest to go on reserve COVID-19 list. Now, they've protected him almost every week. But, obviously he hasn't played yet this year, I don't think. So, or maybe in one game, whatever they have.
He was up for a game, but I don't think he even has a catch or a target.
And then, not surprisingly, Huntley was protected on the practice squad, along with, again, Coyote Awoshika, and then Mac McCain, the defensive back, and Jacoby Stevens, the linebacker. So, again, rather than go back and try to do this all over, I think people can appreciate the breaking news element of our job, and we just address it and we'll move on. I don't think it really changes all that much except for what we said about Matt McCrane, and we'll see if it brings him back.
Yeah.
And honestly, to only have John Hightower going on the list for them is the way the league is going is a good thing.
Well, we'll see what
John Hightower's okay.
Yeah, we'll see what Thursday brings. We'll see. Yeah, we don't know.
Exactly.
How this thing spreads. And the Omicron's more contagious. But, Kerryon Johnson with the Niners. Remember, they signed him prior to when they played the Eagles. And people are like, conspiracy theory. Maybe. Yeah. But you always worried about that knee. From what I understand, he didn't look right in the spring. Mm-hmm. He was clearly beaten out. He wouldn't have made it anyway because he didn't do much. And everyone else, Jordan Howard in particular, clearly beat him out.
Yep.
Beat him out to be on the practice squad, but nevertheless, that will be that. So
I want to get back to Jalen Hurts, since we were discussing him, because along the lines of what you said, I wanted to go through 2 specific plays that I got. One, they're both completions. One, I got positive feedback on that showed what you said about squaring the feet, seeing it, making the right throw, and then one where he had another completion, but probably could have done something differently. All right, so let's talk about the pass to Jalen Reagor on a crossing route from right to left, and he did a really nice job of seeing it. And we've talked about the lack of an intermediary passing game. It's like run, deep shot, run, deep shot. Well, that was a really nice intermediary type of play, and he threaded 2 defenders there at the sideline, and he had good torque on it. He saw it. He planted his plant leg right, squared himself up. Really nice throw. And I don't want that to go unnoticed because there are not that many opportunities where we've seen that, where he's kind of threading a window in a shallow area like that. Did a really nice job of it. A different throw that I got from 2 different people who watched a little bit of a criticism on how he threw the ball was the Quez Watkins catch, the 41-yard catch. So the issue there is that Quez Watkins gets wide open on a deep over from right all the way to left. And if you see it on the all-22 of the wide angle, if Jalen Hurts throws that ball flattens it, that's the word. If he flattens out that throw for the route, if he throws the route further open for Quez Watkins, he catches that in stride and then heads upfield and may have a touchdown. There's only one safety. It was Love, right? Only one guy to beat. But the way he threw that, as you saw with what happened, his throw took Quez Watkins into Julian Love. He actually threw him, instead of throwing him open, he threw him covered. And he was fortunate that Julian was not able to get in front of Quez Watkins, nor was he able to break it up. It could have very easily been broken up. That play was kind of bang, bang. And Quez did a great job of coming down with it because Quez has done a nice job of that this year. And so while it's a good throw, it's 41 yards. There's a big play in the game. Two different people who saw it, who are smarter than me, said that if he just sees that a little bit differently and throws it in a more catchable spot where you can give the receiver a chance to turn and run, it's a potential touchdown. And the follow-up feedback on that was this is still an area for him on the deeper passes that require that seeing it and the torque to get it there quickly to give that opportunity to catch and run instead of floating it up there where you let the defense recover. Still is his bugaboo at times.
So, and then he hit in the first half. He hit Smith on the deep shot down the right side. Because what was great about it is Bradbury, I think it was Bradbury, had his back turned, and then you saw that Smith was able to adjust and move to his right a little bit because Bradbury had his back turned, and that's the kind of situation where you just got to let it loose, and he did. It was a good throw. There were some throws that they missed, where I think what happened was he was locked in on his first read. Which is going to happen, and he needs to come off of it. That's just the more you play, the more you're coached. Cosell was talking. We asked Cosell this in our show on Sunday. Greg talked about it. He feels strongly based on he's watched every snap off coaching tape that Hurts has had, and he said it's real simple. He's come up with this conclusion that Hurts takes the play and he wants to run it like he's taught. He's not at the point in his development where he's going to come off of it. He's just off of one. He's just not. He's not. That's okay. I mean, because what'll happen is if he sees one, if he delivers it accurately, there you go. You move it on. But this is his first full year as a starter, and they're gonna have to keep just trying to develop him. And if there's a playoff game, that'll be big.
Yeah. One thing else I got from in a big picture type thing that the people I spoke to would like to see from the offense in general. It's not just the Jalen Hurts thing, but it kind of does start with the quarterback, is the communication on when you're seeing certain coverages that are designed to take something away. Normally they take something away, but they give up something else. And I'll give you an example. Robber coverage, right? When you have a safety who comes down into the box on passing plays, and Malcolm Jenkins did this all the time in Jim Schwartz's defense. He kind of comes as a help defender on a number one target. Well, that's great. It takes out your number one target theoretically, but it also leaves just one safety deep to defend vertical routes. So if you can hold on a second and see that robber coverage, right, and not throw to your number one target, but then wait the extra second because at that point the receiver is going to adjust and run probably a deeper route, a deep post against a single high safety look, then you can still hit that target down the field and open instead of going to the number two option who might be open from the start, more shallow. It's about that reading high to low instead of low to high, and then knowing and sensing when someone's going to be open, even if he doesn't look open right from the start. This has been something I've heard for 2 weeks now, and it's relative to the Eagles because they've made some completions, but there were better completions left on the field. And you heard the Eagles kind of, both Nick Sirianni and Jalen kind of talk about why he didn't throw to Dallas Goedert, who was wide open in the end zone, because the coverage was designed at first to leave a different player open, and you don't pass up that opportunity. And the only point I'm getting is if you recognize, you see that coverage, you can't tell when a coverage is going to be busted, but you can tell if you have certain advantages based on how you might look off the defense and where you want to go eventually if you're a veteran and if you've seen it. So that is obviously something that a first-year quarterback is going to struggle with more than, say, Aaron Rodgers or, someone who's been, quarterback of Pat Mahomes, anyone who's been quarterbacking 5, 6, 7 years in the league.
Yeah, Goddard was open sometimes and just didn't get the ball because Hurts was going to somebody else. There's no way to know. We don't know exactly what one guy pointed out to me, goes, you noticed Goddard got open and wasn't getting the ball. But again, we don't know what the design of the play was, so it's hard for me to criticize. Where sometimes it's obvious. But he got better as he went along. That was a good thing after a very rough start. And again, it wasn't just his fault. Pass targets dropped, that let him down. I thought there was some hangover from the Washington game. They just didn't have a lot of energy. They deserve to get booed. They did. We know this town. The fans will tell you if you play garbage early on, the fans will let you know. And they got booed. I know my friends who were there were actually involved in it. They were booing. They're season ticket holders. But pass pro, before we get to the defense, pass pro was really good. The only thing that I'd add with Hurts is that I think if he gets off one, stuck is the term that Cosell uses. What he'll do is, though, I'll change it a little bit. He tends to scramble. You saw him. He's done this. You pointed this out weeks ago. He'll climb the pocket sometimes when he doesn't need to. He's just trying to make something happen rather than, okay, one's not open. Okay, go to two, go to three, move your eyes. That's just something he just needs to get better with, and he'll be coached up with it.
Yeah, when I think of stuck, I think more of how Teddy Bridgewater looked, right? Where you look indecisive and your feet are not like consistent with your eyesight and your arm.
Yeah.
With Jalen, it doesn't seem like, I don't know if I get what you're saying, why you would say that, because sometimes he's indecisive there, but his ability to kind of run around, he avoids
that's what he'll do
for too long. Yeah. Which might not be great, but at least it gives him
a chance to do something. Good point.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
No doubt about it. Offensive line, I thought looked really good, and they're going to be. Look, there's no doubt the offensive line is going to have to be even better on Sunday against Washington without a home run hitter in Miles Sanders. Potentially without Jordan Howard, we'll see. And with guys like Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell running the show, the offensive line is going to have to be good, and they're going to have to be good in pass protection against that Washington front, which can rush the passer pretty well. I know everybody's like, what are you talking about, Mosher? They just got their asses kicked to the Cowboys. But as I always like to say, I don't like to judge a team on its lowest point. Otherwise, we could say that the Eagles are not so good because they lost to the Giants a couple of weeks ago. They've clearly not made the same mistakes in that game going forward. So I expect Washington to come out and shake that off and be more resemblant of what they really are, which is not a great team, but better than that they showed against Dallas.
Agreed.
All right. We will get into the Eagles defense in a second. First, I want to remind everybody to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you're checking out all their great coverage on phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. So, and also let's pause real quick to hear a word from our other great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you stop into Sky Motor Cars anytime soon, just head into the headquarters there out in Westchester, PA. Tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get the best deal, just like our friends Steven Nelson and Avante Maddox have. So you can check them out, and maybe you can come away. What was it that Nelson wanted to drive? The Porsche? Yeah.
Porsche.
Green Porsche, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you what. This is the best time in my lifetime and all of our lifetimes. You could get an incredible deal on selling your car because of the car shortage, because of this chip issue through COVID issue.
Right.
If you're ever going to sell it now. You're going to get incredible, well above Kelley Blue Book on used cars, because this is the way the car business is. This is why my Infiniti dealer called me out of the blue and wanted to know if I'd sell it. I'm like, what? And I knew why, because there's a car shortage deal in the country. So, and Brett's great anyway. Brett Shoulder of Sky Motor Cars. He gives the reviews are ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it in retail. Like they love him. He's very fair and he's great, and he does internet business like crazy. If you don't live in the tri-state area, does business in people from California. He has people that drive thousands of miles to go get cars instead of shipping it. They just want to go and pick it up. It's amazing what people will do to get a car. He's the man.
All right. Eagles defense versus that Giants offense, that offensive Giants offense. Look, as much as we'd like to have seen Jonathan Gannon force the issue and come after and maybe force a little more turnovers. I did like what they did up front. They were able to cause some havoc against that Giants offensive line, did some athletic movement. I just think it's funny because I thought like the stunting and we can go back to early in the offseason when they hired Jonathan Gannon. We talked about how that is kind of consistent with what has been done in both Indianapolis and Minnesota, where he came from, and that that was probably going to be. And these are good athletes on the Eagles have on the D line. They're almost meant for that kind of movement in line games, even though Jim Schwartz never did it much as well. I guess they just needed to adapt to it, but we're finally starting to see it more.
Oh, stunt, because they were not for several weeks. They were not doing anything stunts. Again, still trying to figure out what he had, and it's working. They're moving Cox around. What he's doing a good job of is figuring out what the matchups are going into the game. It's very clear to me that he sees, okay, we could win this way in this matchup against this offensive line. This is a great example. This game against the Giants, they had some really specific matchups. They thought they can get Will Hernandez. They did. Milton Williams no one is faster. Hargrave's a better football player, but Milton Williams is their fastest defensive tackle. Mm-hmm. His get off, once again, I know that the short arms is a problem. That's why I don't think he could play at the end very much. But his get off, and I'm sure he knows this. He's got to win with speed, and he's beating these slower guards, and centers. That he really showed up in this game. And they won against Washington repeatedly. I understand it's our job to point out they're facing bad quarterbacks. They have the last 2 weeks, particularly the Giants. It was embarrassing, as you were talking about. But you know what? Hey, you got to do your job. They did a very good job. Yep. We'll preview Friday what Washington's line will look like. They're getting some guys back. But overall, without having to blitz very much, they won. The stunts won. I mentioned this a couple games ago, and I'll mention this before we move to linebackers and DBs. They clearly are bringing a lot of energy. It seems to me that they're understanding the techniques and what they're being asked to do better than they were, let's say, 5-6 weeks ago, when you really wondered about Gannon and were the players buying in. They clearly are buying in.
That's fair. I'm looking forward to seeing them these next 2 weeks against. Not that Washington's great, but I'm just looking forward to seeing some against somebody other than Jake Fromm or Zach Wilson, and or who is the quarterback, Garrett Gilbert, and
or Mike Glennon.
Seeing if that same energy, or Mike Glennon, right? The same energy and same productivity is there. Obviously, they're showing up on tape, and Washington knows that, and I'm sure Washington, which is in a better position health-wise, not a great one, but a better one than the first matchup.
Heineke will give him something.
Yeah. By the way, I remember saying to you on Monday, the pod that dropped Monday, I remember saying I was surprised by seeing Cam Malvo out there.
Oh my goodness.
And then I saw the snap count, and that even shocked me even more. He was out there. He's like 45% of the defense. He played 34 snaps.
I don't have a reason. I'm going to look into this why they thought he needed to. I know Kerrigan was out, and that obviously was an issue of why they felt he needed to play. But to play as much as he did, now he's really long. He's a combo player. Some teams saw him as maybe a guy because he's 6'5", could put some weight on and play D tackle. He's in the 280 range. He's been around, man. He's been around since 2017 with the Dolphins, Cardinals, Chiefs, Niners, Browns, now Eagles. Clearly, teams see something in him. And my goodness, I guess out of necessity, he had to play. And he played a lot, and he does have
land. They may have seen something that they liked, and they're just hey, this is the Giants. We know we can beat them. He's got some athleticism and skills we want to see. Let's see, and he clearly did a nice job. So hey, he may have to be relied on again this weekend, depending on what happens with the ends that we talked about in the COVID situation. Also, let's move on. Well, we already talked about Milton Williams. He continues to show up. He flashes. He's got athleticism, and again, he might have to play multiple spots on the D-line, depending on what happens. Linebackers have been doing a good job. Again, they're going to get a little bit more tested over the next 2 weeks, but even when a pass is completed over the middle against the Eagles, I noticed that Edwards is just like a tick away from maybe getting there or breaking it up, but then he'll make the tackle immediately. It really has helped solidify that interior there. Remember when I said, I'm sorry, real quick. Remember when I said I didn't think that there was going to be a huge drop-off from Davion Taylor to Alex Singleton? I think that's proven to be true. Like this middle of the defense has done a good enough job.
Taylor's more of a flash player, but you're right. And although I would argue, in fact, I know this is the case because someone who would know told me this. I don't know the measurement, but the linebackers in the scheme are playing farther back. Might be 2 yards back. Who knows? But the case may be they were not getting the scheme. They were not. The reason why Singleton got benched because he was late too many times on the tackle. and now he's not late anymore. And he's been really playing well. Edwards has been very consistent. They're doing a very good job. It shows that we could talk all we want about the competition, but you can only go by what you're told, what the tape looks like. Mm-hmm. They're playing with much better discipline, and they're doing a very respectable job against the run, which is really obviously a struggle for them over the first 5 to 7 weeks. And one of the many reasons why their defense has improved is they're way more disciplined, and the front seven is playing well. They're doing a good job, and Heineke's a very good athlete for the quarterback position. Mm-hmm. He likes to make things happen. He's a very aggressive thrower. We'll talk more about this on Friday morning. But this matchup will be it will be more difficult. The question is how much more difficult? Well, we'll see.
Right. Now, the fascinating thing is what happened at safety with Epps, who we've said should play more, and he certainly did. He played 47 snaps, 62% of defense, but it was more at the expense of Rodney McLeod than it was for Anthony Harris, correct? Because Anthony Harris played 46 snaps, just one less, and then McLeod played 38. And oddly enough, he had the interception. But so it seemed, I always thought.
But they got a big, too.
What's that?
They got a big. What I was going to say is just to jump in. They got
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. I don't know how many snaps they needed to play, but which we didn't see it at halftime. If you would have told me that what would wind up happening, I'm like, really?
Right.
It did. But no, that's all I was going to say.
Well, I'm just glad they're getting Epps on the field more, and I thought he made 2 plays that stood out. And again, every time he's there, it's hard to recognize safeties in this defense, but Epps, when he's on the field, you see him, he makes plays. It'll be interesting to see against Washington and against Dallas what the safety rotation looks like. It's clearly a rotation now. They're just it's just not sure who's in what package and for what reason at the moment.
Well, they have different and Epps could hit. He and McLeod both had major hits in the game. Mm-hmm. One cost an interception. So the Epps is a player. This is a great find for them off waivers back in 2019.
Yeah.
So I would assume. Well, I hate to assume because you never know about McLeod and Harris coming back next year because their contracts expire. But I got to think Epps starts next year.
Possibly.
What else does he have to do? I mean, the guy just shows up every week, plays well.
I would hear you. I agree with you. I'm kind of I'm happy about the development. It's been a long time we've seen some development at that position.
At your safety position, right?
So absolutely. All right, we will have Q&A will be out Thursday morning at 6 a.m. Our next podcast will drop Friday 6 a.m. We'll be able to preview the really big game coming up Sunday at FedEx Field between the Eagles and Washington. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. I want to thank our producer, Hunter Brody. Check out his work on YouTube. It's called Sports Talk with Broads, and his website is broadsmedia.com. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.